Welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. The boys are back in town. Joe, still in Brighton though?
Still here, yeah. All fine, thank you, JP.
Fino, no vaccines for you in Scotland?
Not yet, still locked down.
Cav the Poet?
Yeah, still locked down tight.
Lockdown tight in sunny Salzburg. Is the title lockdown? Is it finished? Is the title race over? We'll certainly know a lot more after Saturday, our opening game at 1:30 at the Etihad. Man City, who just beat Arsenal against West Ham. Great win for West Ham against Spurs. Fino, but you've had a great run, but it's got to come to an end here, surely.
West Ham played really well against Tottenham, I thought, and for the most part, they got forward well. They put their bodies on the line. Declan Rice had a phenomenal stop in the second half, but City are just so ruthless at the moment. And John Stones, I think, is playing his best football that he's ever played. And I saw a little stat which was Man City have now gone away to Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs, Man United, and Arsenal, and have restricted Salah, Firmino, Mane, Werner, Kane, Son, Rashford, Greenwood, Aubameyang and Lacazette to 4 shots on target. That's unbelievable. It's not just good, it's kind of historic style defending. Look, it's a really tricky game for West Ham. We've got a really tough kind of next 6 to 9 games. I think we play United, Arsenal, Leicester and Chelsea. So this is really kind of where we need to be a bit smarter about, which games we maybe use Antonio in because his hamstrings seem to be, a bit dodgy. Man City are just too strong. We've already kind of crowned them champions. I think this is going to be a tough one for West Ham.
I think it's time, Fino, that you started to maybe dream a little. When Southampton were in the top 4, I went all in. I was big. West Ham, I think you need to be a bit more kind of positive. You could win the league. You've been.
How did that work out for you, Joe?
I thoroughly enjoyed it when Southampton were at the top of the table, as I should have done for the first time in so many years. You have to enjoy it when your clubs are actually playing well, because next season West Ham may be, fighting relegation again. So I think just, go for it.
It's few and far between that we have a West Ham team that are challenging up that end of the table. I think the last time was probably, Slaven Bilic and Dimitri Payet's enigmatic self. If we're in a point after that kind of Chelsea game, I think the Chelsea game is the last of those big games that I just mentioned. If we're still in the top 4, absolutely the fans will really start to believe. But it's really tough. Going United, Arsenal, Leicester, Chelsea, that's going to be the proper the metal, I suppose.
The only thing I'd say, Fino, is look how I'm not saying the team, but you for us, you're the representative. Look how they were kicking themselves for the approach against Liverpool. Like we said, they played the reputation maybe and not the team itself. And that was what you're only defeating God knows how long. And I just, I'm sure you're right, the pragmatism, but I'm going to side with Joe a bit here. I would actually like to see the team absolutely go for it because, I agree, City have won the league. There's no doubt about it. Even a defeat against West Ham wouldn't change that one iota. But I just love to see West Ham have a go because, enjoy it while you can. Exactly. Why not? They're on a roll.
We've used the term free hit, I think, every week in the last, 6 to 8 weeks for one of the games. But no, this is definitely a free hit for West Ham. And it'll be interesting to see what Jesse Lingard is able to do against Man City. He's really come into that team. And I think there's kind of parallels to be drawn with his impact and on West Ham as Minamino with Southampton, that it just seems to be a bit of a random one that Man United have even let him go because, he comes back in the summer with a year left on his contract. Obviously, they're trying to put him into the shop window, but, if he catches the West Ham bug, so to speak, it's going to be very tough to shift him on to anybody else aside from West Ham. Let's pretend that, West Ham get Champions League football. Suddenly that £15 million that they could have got for Jesse Lingard only becomes 10 and it becomes kind of the bargain of the season.
With the greatest respect to the talents of Jesse Lingard, I think it would take even the likes of Mbappe and Haaland a tough afternoon to try and break down the Man City defence. West Brom against Brighton at the Hawthorns, 4 o'clock on Saturday. West Brom with the board draw against Burnley, and Brighton, Joe, pipped last night by Palace. Very bitter defeat at the end. Benteke scored, and Brighton had a chance to kind of pull away from Newcastle and Fulham and put distance between themselves. Now they're still kind of in it. That will have hurt them last night, Joe.
Oh, just a horrendous result for Brighton. Fantastic winning goal by Benteke on the volley in literally the last second. But same old story with Brighton. We've said this again and again. I think Brighton dominated the match. I think they had like 25 kind of attempts. They were just dominating, always in the final third, but just couldn't score. And we've said this so many times. And the longer that you go on in this league without scoring goals, you're going to find yourself above that relegation zone. And with Fulham winning at the weekend as well, Brighton and Newcastle especially are seriously looking over their shoulders now. I think just looking at the table, Fulham are 4 points off Brighton. So it doesn't take much, does it? 4 points is nothing. That can change very quickly. So Brighton, unless they start winning matches, could be in for a very, very difficult end to the season.
Big Sam came out and said 9 clean sheets in 13 games is apparently what they need to stay up. I think it's 9 wins they need. So this one is definitely going to be one where both of them go at each other. West Brom as well, chance after chance that they spurned against Burnley, even after going down to 10 men. So, I think there's similarities in the way that they approach their last games. But Brighton, I think, have only lost 1 game in their last 6 away, and that was to Man City. So I think we can forgive them that. And, if I was Brighton, I would definitely be going into this game thinking 3 points is not only achievable, but also kind of vital to their survival this season.
I think we should just say West Brom had a player sent off, didn't they, quite early against Burnley, and they obviously fought really hard and by all accounts should have beaten Burnley with 10 men. So I think West Brom is still playing for Allardyce. They're still trying. They're still going for it. So I don't think this will be as easy for Brighton as what we may expect.
Yeah, Allardyce's team always gave 100%. I mean, this will be the first time though that he's taken a team down. 6:30 at Ellen Road, Leeds against Villa. Leeds beaten by Wolves in controversial circumstances. I thought Patrick Bamford's goal was onside, to be honest. Aston Villa pipped by Leicester 2-1. Very professional outfit these days, though, Leicester. And, Villa were looking so good with those games in hand. Leeds are kicking off, we have to remember, in 20 minutes against Southampton tonight, as we are recording now. So, if they're to pick up a win there and then go into the Villa game full of confidence, who knows? This game could go either way. Quickly going back to something somebody said a few weeks ago about Jack Grealish and how to stop Villa, stop Grealish, stop Villa. I mean, it seems that Villa are struggling a little bit, and Bielsa would have looked at that. I did like Bielsa's comments this week, though, how he said that he didn't take Leeds to the Premier League. He is managing in the Premier League because of Leeds United, which was a very humble thing to say. Fino.
I love the fact that the reason that we found out that Jack Grealish wasn't playing at the weekend was because it was leaked by the Aston Villa players taking him out of their fantasy Premier League lineups. And so Aston Villa have now banned all their players from all playing fantasy Premier League. I thought that was brilliant. And I think, Villa were undone in that first 20 minutes, half an hour against Leicester. And if Leeds start in a similar fashion, I think it could be a very long day for Aston Villa, especially if Grealish isn't back in time, which seems to be the general consensus. Leeds, I thought it was interesting there, JP, that you talked about Bamford, because he seems like the kind of player that, even 5 or 6 years ago would have just been an absolute phenom. He's had 2 or 3 of those insanely tight offside decisions where VAR have correctly/incorrectly given him offside. But he plays with just such amazing, pace and power off the shoulder of that last man. And it just seems a bit of a shame that, whilst VAR have deemed him offside, that those goals aren't able to stand, because he's scored some absolute screamers over the course of the season.
The word is that he's too posh to play football. And listening to him speak, he's probably the poshest footballer I've heard since a guy called Graham Lasso, who won a title with Blackburn playing left back, went on to Chelsea after, and he was actually from the island of Jersey. But I fancy Leeds to do Villa here and to keep going. Kevin, I
think they have to, in a way, don't they? Sorry, it's really weird talking about this game when we've got Leeds about to play anyway. But having had that, it's been a sort of sticky little run, isn't it? And if tonight's game, which were to turn into a defeat, and then you're looking at this one, which is tricky by anyone's standards, you'd be suddenly they'd be looking would they have anything really left to play for? And they have been so much fun. You do hope that they continue to play in that way to the end of the season. But most teams, if they're stuck around the sort of 12th, 13th, with no chance of getting relegated, but no realistic chance of it. It would be such a shame, wouldn't it, for Leeds? I really hope they, good couple of games now, and you sort of think, wow, they could be on for a place in Europe for the end of the season. And that'd be great because it would just keep that going.
Same thing with Aston Villa, though. If Grealish isn't there for, say, the next 3-4 games, suddenly Aston Villa start to look a bit bang average. And, we've talked about it before that Barkley can't seem to be able to find the spaces that Grealish does. It means that the service to Watkins is a bit strangled. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. It could be that, come 5-6:30 on Saturday, that, we've got two teams there playing that have nothing to play for.
Huge game in St. James's Park, 9 o'clock Saturday night. Newcastle against Wolves. Now, things were looking a little bit up when Newcastle beat Southampton in that mega game a few weeks ago. Since then, we've had Chelsea and Manchester United. In like, being honest, all Newcastle fans would have expected us to lose both of those games, and they did. Chelsea never showed up. I thought against Manchester United for the first hour until that second goal went in, Newcastle actually pressed hard and they showed for the ball and they were okay. Joe Linton went off. Normally, you'd be happy about that, but it took away some of the work rate up front. Man United were always going to win. They did. Newcastle fans will have earmarked this game a long time ago to say, look, this is where it really starts now. This little run of fixtures start now where we should hopefully get points. Sadly, Callum Wilson won't be back until after Easter. And the void he's left is massive. Also, what's also happening is Wolves have started to play and pick up form. They've won the last 2. They're unbeaten in the last 4. So this game, I actually would have fancied Newcastle in this game a few weeks ago. Now is even more tricky. And, I don't think he has the answer. Like Dwight Gale, he tried him, it hasn't worked out. Joe Linton is never going to work. I really hope they do what West Ham did and just cut their losses and flog him for half the price. Will that be in the Premier League next season or in the Championship? And Fulham are on form. They're playing well. Brighton were unlucky. They can score goals. They can play football. Newcastle, we're really struggling at the minute, just on the evidence of the last 2 games. But I wouldn't be surprised if he goes Andy Carroll, if they give it absolutely everything and try and get the 3 points, because Ashley knows if he wants to sell this club, they got to be in the Premier League. Does he want to sell it? Who knows? Fino.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Newcastle need to be in the Premier League, I think, for that team to feel anywhere near kind of like a sellable asset in Mike Ashley's mind. A nice quirk of Wolves this season is that they've only won twice in a row, 2 times this season, and both games came against Leeds. So, I mean, maybe there's a bit there for you that, maybe they won't make it 3 in a row. I thought it was good that, Traore had that absolute screamer that hit off the post and then luckily, came off the keeper for Wolves' goal against Leeds. But I think the commentary said that was his first goal in the league in a year or so. Wolves just haven't been that same, effervescent self that we associate them over the past 2 seasons. It's going to be tough for Newcastle. I think it's really going to be tough. And Wolves, Rui Patricio was in amazing form against Leeds. If he carries that into the Newcastle game, I think it could be very difficult for Newcastle to even, register a goal.
I wouldn't go that far, Fino. I mean, there's a different animal, Man United and Chelsea and Wolves. Wolves are not what they were a couple of seasons ago. I would give us a half a chance. This is not like Man United at Old Trafford we're going to lose. Newcastle against Wolves, I think we could get something from this game, maybe a point, who knows. You get an early goal, okay, Callum Wilson is missing. Callum Wilson went off early against Southampton, and they went on. I would put Wolves around the same bracket as Southampton. Okay, Southampton are in terrible form, but I would give Newcastle a slight chance in this game. Kev?
No, obviously, I think they have a chance. I think it's more. I'd say for the first time, I really am starting to get worried about Newcastle, though, because you look at the league table and you tell me, JP, but their goal difference is now markedly worse than anyone apart from the top 2 down there. Is that indicative of a team that just really isn't there? You were saying a few weeks ago, that they're poorly coached. But are you starting to face the reality that that really there's just nothing to say that you really should stay up. That it is going to be a relegation fight now between you and a couple of teams.
Going back 5 or 6 weeks, definitely, yeah. Graham Jones came in. There was positive changes against Leeds in the second half. There was the win at Goodison Park where they were brilliant. That Southampton game was crazy. Palace, Newcastle dominated the game. They were robbed. The Southampton game could have went anyway, but they got the 3 points. And then you've got, Chelsea away and Man United away. And on any given Sunday with Callum Wilson, you wouldn't give Newcastle much chance of winning, really. What did piss off a lot of Newcastle fans was Steve Bruce's kind of laughing and joking attitude with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the end. And the question is, do you realise that we are in a relegation battle? This is, mega serious. Now, all-round performances as regards to the hope have definitely improved since Graham Jones has come in. There was intent, like they were in the game at Old Trafford with, at the start of the second half. The Chelsea game, like they didn't start pressing until the second half. But definitely what I did notice is that tiredness kicked in and belief left as soon as Daniel James got that goal to put Man United 2-1 up. And then it was kind of, comfort zone. Man United got a lucky penalty. I think, there's a bit of fight there, sure, but it's just the quality. And a lot of it is down to what you said there, Kev, goal difference. Newcastle, struggled to score goals all season. And the games they've won, like the game, I think it was Everton at 2-0 might have been the biggest win of the season. They just don't score goals even with Callum Wilson, he's not prolific and there's not anyone else. Almiron's only started scoring goals since Graham Jones came in. So, like you're talking about stop Jack Grealish, St. Maximo scored, of course, against Man United on the weekend, but teams are kind of figuring out how to defend against him as well. So I am very worried, but this game, will tell a lot. If Newcastle can get something to this game, get stuck in and go, look, this is not Man United, it's not Chelsea. You want to play in the Championship next season? You got to get stuck in. Fino.
Oftentimes we talk about teams week to week and very individualised in terms of games, but actually you can start to see quite significant trends. If we think about Liverpool over the last kind of 6 months, we think about Southampton going so high and then very low, very quickly. You wonder if Newcastle is trending the wrong way in comparison to a team like Fulham that, we'll get onto them, I'm sure, but they played very well last weekend. They were constantly challenging. And do you think that, we talk about Newcastle challenging Man United during that game. When that second goal went in, do you think that their heads dropped and they just went, right, well, that's the game gone, rather than actually going and fighting for a point or, who knows, 3 points? It's a very difficult thing, that kind of psychology, and it's a very easy thing for doubt and negativity to seep into a team. It's very difficult to get rid of it, but it's very easy for it to kind of fester.
Definitely, Fino. Yeah, I mean, you could see in the performance levels, the energy levels for the last half an hour, they weren't in the game at all. And, but again, I'll go back to it, it's Man United and Chelsea. So looking at those two fixtures after we beat Southampton, I would have expected us to lose those. But it was more about what was the teams below us going to do. And Fulham have picked up form. Fulham are good to watch. They can play the ball, keep the ball. They can hurt teams, and I think it's going to go down to the last day of the season when the last game is Fulham at Craven Cottage against Newcastle. And that's when Joe Linton becomes the hero, when the ball hits off his arse and goes in on the last minute to keep us up. Right. I certainly hope so. Moving on to Sunday, Fulham away to Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, 1:00. Palace are in a little bit of a comfort zone now after that lucky win against Brighton. Fulham, of course, got the draw. Got the win, sorry. But, I think there might be a little bit of pressure on Fulham now. There would have been pressure on Palace had Palace not got the win. They would have been sucked into it. But I think Fulham go to Palace now and, they're going to be worried. Okay, they're playing well. But, I just hope that Palace can win this game. It's more in hope than expectation.
Palace had 2 touches in Brighton's box all game. How they won that game is still an absolute mystery. And Fulham, if you're a Fulham fan, they were very lucky to not give away a penalty in their previous game. And you just wonder whether or not that slice of luck is the kind of thing that fans of Fulham will be able to cling on to and go, well, actually, maybe our season is about to turn around. You know, the players might start to believe it. They played really well, I thought, Fulham. You know, they constantly challenged the goal. They were playing well. Their goal was really nicely taken. I think Lookman is a very underrated player in the Premier League. Crystal Palace, they just looked devoid of anything, really, I thought. And okay, they got the 3 points, and they'll be very lucky to have taken those 3 points. But I think Fulham go into this game thinking that they can absolutely run over Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace, though, I mean, I watched them against Newcastle a few weeks ago, and when Newcastle were actually playing well, and they had, I think, 4 or 5 shots on goal. Newcastle had a ridiculous amount, something like 26. Bear in mind that I think they got the 2 lucky goals, really, but they've got individual players like Wilf Zaha, like Eze, you know, like Andros Townsend, and they're very solid at the back, and they're stubborn and hard to break down. So, you know, that's why I think that they're staying up this season, and without being spectacular, they just kind of get the job done. And Roy Hodgson is a very professional manager. I don't know. I think that Palace can win, but it's more I hope Palace can win. Joe.
Obviously, Roy Hodgson used to manage Fulham. I think he took them to the Europa League final, didn't he?
Yep.
So you wonder if he might just do his old team a bit of a favour, you know, rest some of his players, you know, Fulham get the win, and then, you know, Newcastle are in the relegation zone. You just don't know. Talking of Palace, I just want to talk about their goal quickly. So the goal from Mateta against Brighton, if you haven't seen it, was sublime. This amazing backheel finish. It was brilliant. But as you said, Fino, Palace did not deserve to win that game. So I think Fulham will have no fear whatsoever going to Palace. I think that they'll see it as a game that they can comfortably get 3 points from and continue their good form.
I do not agree. And Roy Hodgson would be absolutely horrified if you thought he was going to throw the game, Joe. Leicester against Arsenal at 1 o'clock Sunday as well. Leicester, of course, winners over Villa. Leicester are joined second in the table. Arsenal beat by Man City. For me, this is Leicester all day long. Vardy's back, and Brendan Rodgers, you know, he's a very astute manager. He's got them playing great stuff. Arsenal are, hot and cold, and consistency. You got to go with consistency here, and Leicester are consistent.
Are we at the point now where if you only lose 1-0 to Man City, then you take that as like a positive result? So for Arsenal, you know, the fact that they didn't lose 3 or 4 may actually have given them a little bit of hope for this game. But no, I agree. Leicester just in such good form. I think we said this last week. When Leicester are good and they're on it, they're really good. And Maddison is playing so well. Barnes is playing so well. Vardy's back. I just can't see how Arsenal are going to trouble them too much. So I think this one will be a Leicester win.
I agree. I think Leicester had their sticky spell quite a long time ago now. And it really was, things did go quite badly for them for a little while around about that sort of November, December period. They look really, really good now. You know, I'm a big fan of Harvey Barnes. You know, if I was looking at a player that I'd want to sign, he'd be right up there, I think, from another English team. And I think we all, we've been fairly consistent on this with Arsenal. Just because they had a couple of results never looked like really they were a good team, did they? It never looked like they were really convincing. I think you're right, they didn't get humiliated, but did you sort of get the feeling that Guardiola was going a bit easy on Arteta? I don't know. I don't think they were ever at the races particularly there.
You know, everyone said exactly my thoughts. I think Harvey Barnes is having a really strong season, and I think he's added goals to his game, and he's added a directness that he maybe didn't have in previous seasons. James Maddison, a phenomenal player, I think, and I think England really have an abundance of those kind of really strong or solid number 10s at the moment. If we think about, Maddison, Mount, Barnes, Grealish, even, Smith Rowe at Arsenal. If Leicester play the way they did in the last 20 minutes of the Liverpool game and the kind of first half hour of the Aston Villa game, it's going to be really tough for Arsenal.
One of our favourite topics as well the last few weeks has been goalkeepers, and we've said, to challenge for the league and to challenge for the top 4, you need a really good goalkeeper who's in form, and Leicester have definitely got that. I think outside of City and Liverpool's keepers, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league, isn't he? And has been for the last few years. Kasper Schmeichel is a really, really solid, dependable goalkeeper.
I wish I could include Alisson in that list of really good keepers because, let's face it, at the moment it's not happening. So yeah, no, I spot on. I agree. Title-winning keeper, fantastic.
3 o'clock on Sunday. Spurs have lost 5 of the last 6 games, lads. 5 of the last 6 games. Mourinho seems bemused by the whole thing, and the wheels have really fell off the wagon from your title winners at Christmas, Fino.
Yeah, look, I was really surprised with Tottenham actually against West Ham, and look, they're a shadow of the title or the champions elect or the pre-Christmas champions elect that I anointed. They just looked devoid of any ideas. They looked sluggish. West Ham Tottenham is a derby game, and they approached it like a walk in the park. And West Ham came to play, and they kind of shell shocked them, and they didn't then really have the ability to change or get themselves into the game. And then they brought on Bale. Bale did not look good. He had one chance where I think it hit off the bar, but that was it was a rebound. It came to him. He doesn't have the pace to play on the wing. He's not going to do the running of a Son in that kind of number 10 transition role. Tottenham really weren't good. But on the flip side, Burnley were miles off against West Brom. And I think if they turn up to Tottenham like that, Tottenham will be looking for a revenge or kind of a response, and they could take 4 or 5 off Burnley.
It's funny you say that though, Fino. I didn't watch the game myself, but I read quite really positive write-ups of Bale's performance when he came on. Everyone was sort of saying, he showed his career, has got plenty left to run. And I just wonder, sometimes people can, get carried away when they see him, a flash of skill, which obviously there was in that game, moments of brilliance, but it's not enough really, is it? I guess is what I'm saying, to be worth a place in a team that's going to be challenging for the title, you've got to be doing more than just showing the odd flash of genius, right? You've got to show that you can be an integral part of the team. And I think it sounds like, from what you're saying anyway, that he was a long way from that.
Yeah, 100%. I felt that he, when he came on, I was expecting him to be running at players, to really be trying to, inject a bit of pace into what was a pretty lackluster performance in the first half especially. They were super slow. They were very kind of ponderous. And he just didn't. West Ham then went 2-0 up, and then it's obviously a different game. But yeah, I think Bale, I don't think he's completely finished, but at top level, I think it's very difficult for him to be a starter.
All of the reports in the papers this morning in England were that Spurs are lining up Julian Nagelsmann from RB Leipzig to, replace Mourinho, which, I don't know if there's any truth in that at all, but it just always happens with Mourinho. There's at some point, there always comes all this noise around him, and it just becomes really, really, difficult for the club, doesn't it? When there's, talk of, dressing room fallouts, and apparently the players are annoyed that they're training on their defence permanently and, not training the attacking, and then there's another coach coming in. It always seems to happen around Mourinho. So it'll be really interesting to see how long before it really blows up again.
I never thought I'd hear Gareth Bale and lack of pace in the same sentence. Chelsea against Manchester United at 5:30 at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea held by Southampton, Joe. Man United, easy win in the end against Newcastle. Although they were quite flat in the performance, I have to say. And Solskjaer said he's not giving up on this title race. Obviously 10 points behind Man United. Chelsea will have real hopes getting into this top 4, especially with West Ham playing Man City. This could be a chance for them to kind of, do something. Under Thomas Tuchel, they've been pretty impressive. This is a real test for Man United, and just got a feeling Chelsea could do this one.
I'm not sure, actually. I was very surprised at Chelsea's performance, unless Danny Ings committed the ridiculous foul in his own penalty box and gave them penalty. I don't think Chelsea were going to score against Saints. They had lots of the ball, but created very, very little. They didn't do much at all. And we know how good Man U are away from home. I just think with, Chelsea, they had this kind of new manager enthusiasm and kind of, the first few games, as we often see when a new manager goes into a club. And then now I think they're kind of figuring out that maybe he still hasn't quite figured out the system and the players. They weren't very good against Southampton, and Southampton, who'd lost 6 on the bounce, if any team were going to win, Southampton hit the bar through Vestergaard with a header. So I actually think Man U are going to win this one.
It's interesting that you speak about that kind of new manager enthusiasm, because I think if you speak to Callum Hudson-Odoi, he'll probably have a very different story. You know, he was hauled off after 31 minutes, you know, suffering the indignation of being substituted on and then substituted off. And the fact that Tuchel then publicly slated him is just a very interesting dynamic. You know, we talk about Tottenham and there being a bit of a circus around him. Tuchel very quickly, I think, might find himself, if he continues to slate his players in the press, he might start to find himself with a bit of a circus around him. Man United, I didn't get to see the Newcastle game, but I think, a chance to really firmly put themselves in the top four. One thing that we've not talked about, or one player that we've not talked about, Joe, was Mason Mount. I thought he was the best player on the pitch against Southampton. He was really strong. Ironically, in what I felt was quite like a Lampard-esque role. It's almost as if Tuchel's found him that nice little number 8, number 10 role. This is a really interesting one. I hope for a draw, but let's see.
He's a Portsmouth fan.
Just one thing off the pitch is, I don't know if you'll have seen it, but there's been like in all the papers outside England, there's been like there's been the story of the salaries that all the Chelsea players have been leaked. The amount of money Chelsea are paying Havertz, and Havertz actually is the top earner by a mile, but him and Timo Werner, they're eye-watering amounts of money. And even if those, for whatever reason, I haven't seen any reports in the English papers. I don't know why. I was just looking in Spain earlier on. That's going to be really embarrassing for everyone at the club. And when those sorts of things get leaked, I just wonder if that's not going to help the ambience at the club probably either. Because honestly, when it looks like they've paid about 30 million. They're paying about 30 million a season for two players who've scored about one goal between them all year. So that's going to make people sit up.
Get down the bookies, put your money on Manchester United to win. Now, 8:15 on Sunday evening. It's the bottom of the table clash, bottom of the form table. Liverpool, of course, lost the last 4 in a row. Sheffield United lost the last 3 in a row. Surely, Kevin, this is where Liverpool turned it around. Sheffield United relegated. They've been terrible all season. Surely this is the game.
I'd love to think that's true, but I don't have much evidence to suggest it is. All I could say is, you're probably right. I mean, everyone seems to assume that that's the final nail, in the Sheffield United coffin. So I suppose they may be at a point, but they played really well against us earlier in the season. That was like a really tough game. I think, didn't Man City say that they had one of their toughest games of the season against them? Bloody hell! I think there's maybe a little bit of grief between the two managers there as well. So I could just see Sheffield United putting up one last fantastic display and extending this, this miserable run of form for Liverpool a bit longer. I mean, don't forget Jordan Henderson. I know you're a bit of a skeptic, but he really is very important to this Liverpool team. He's joined the injury list. I know there's just there's a couple of players who are on the verge of coming back, but there isn't much positive. There aren't any positives really to point out at Liverpool at the moment. And the only thing, I think you said earlier on, Fino, you mentioned that figure 6 months. You could actually probably go all the way back to the return from lockdown. You could probably go all the way back. I think the first defeat of last season was against Watford. I can't even remember when that was, but probably since then, Liverpool's form has been really, really average. Certainly, the Atletico Madrid games really in the Champions League, and then after that, as you all know, they lost almost as many as they won in the run-in, even though the title was already done and dusted. And since then, a strong start to the season with all those home wins. It's just I don't know what it is. Everyone hates it when you complain about injuries. It's not complaining. It's just you just have to say they've had some pretty terrible luck, or they've made their own luck. I don't know. But honestly, there is very, very little to suggest that they're about to fight their way out of this.
Yeah, there's reams and reams of column inches being written about Liverpool and what's gone wrong and how they can save their season. This stage last season, they'd won 96% of their games in the league. This season, they've won just 44%. That's a wild difference. And I just feel like that team look defeated. They look down. And, I talked about it last week, that kind of mental break, I suppose, that European football provided them. And I thought that they played relatively well last week in midweek. And then all of a sudden they came back to to the monotony, I suppose, of the Premier League, and they just looked, completely down and out. And I think nowhere was that kind of exemplified more than the penalty. It was had it been saved and palmed out, it wouldn't have mattered because there were 2 or 3 Everton players already in the box, whilst the Liverpool players were just walking around expecting Sigurdsson to score. It just is. It's a really sorry state of affairs for Liverpool, and I know that there's been plenty of podcasts and TV shows about how Liverpool have been quote unquote bad champions. It's not a case of being bad champions. They've just kind of come to the end of their run, I think, so to speak. They need a bit of a rebuild, I suppose. If there's such a kind of cataclysmic divide in that, the spine of the Liverpool team because one player's come out, they need to find a way to be, rebuilt in a way that doesn't require Virgil van Dijk all the time. But it is Sheffield United. And it's, I think, Kev, you mentioned it last week, the 1 point for every game left is usually what you would want if you were winning the league. So, if there's 13 games left, you'd want a 13-point lead. That's now 14 points off 17th with 13 games to go for Sheffield United. They're absolutely down. And now you start to wonder who from that Sheffield United team is now eyeing a move to a Newcastle, a Palace, the teams at 15th and 14th that will be staying up. You've got very sellable assets in that Sheffield United team. Ollie McBurney, John Fleck, Aaron Ramsdale as well. So it's going to be a tough time for Sheffield United. Surely Liverpool can take 3 points here.
You'd think so. I mean, you're looking for a positive, Kev. You just gave us a positive. Jordan Henderson is out. I mean, he's been key this season. He's been awful the last 4 games, I thought. He's definitely not a centre half. Sheffield United, I agree, Fino. They'll for them it's massive. Like, they know they're probably relegated, a chance to have take down the champions. But Liverpool have had injuries, but they're a massive club with a huge squad, with 4 guys sitting on the bench that would walk into 80% of the other Premier League team's attack. And then in midfield also, Alcantara's come in. He's a world-class player. There's obviously some issue going on there, but I still think Liverpool have the players to get themselves out of trouble. Like, I go back to this attack. This attack won the Premier League last season. Alcantara won the Champions League. They don't become bad players. I know it goes back to you've got to get the ball up to them and the high press. What I will say about this season is I think teams learned how to defend against Liverpool and how to stop them coming forward.
You might be right. We don't know. All I'd say is I'm just going to repeat something I said earlier this season, which is all 3 of Liverpool's forwards have been out of form for long periods of the last 3 seasons. And at the moment, what you've got at least 2 of them now being in terrible form. So Firmino, if teams have worked him out, then what they've worked out is how to make sure that most of Liverpool's chances fall to Firmino, who is the least reliable striker. But to be honest, I'm getting a little bit frustrated with Mane, who I don't think has been in form for a long, long time. And I think what happened was in previous seasons, when Mane's been out of form, he was at least giving absolutely everything. And I'm not quite seeing that at the moment. I think you're looking at, they're all out of form. Mohamed Salah is the one who's really trying. He's really putting a shift in. But the others, I don't even know. And I think, obviously, Jota was papering over the cracks a little bit earlier in the season. But you're looking at, they need some dynamism up front.
It makes it all the more strange why you let us at Southampton have Minamino. What a fantastic goal it was at the weekend.
I know. It's unfathomable, Joe. It's unfathomable.
Kev, I've got a question for you. So at the moment, it looks very much like Liverpool have a one or the other approach here. They either go for top 4 in the Premier League or they go for the Champions League, because there's something about Liverpool over the last kind of 5-6 seasons where them playing European football on a Thursday just doesn't sit with me next season. And they're probably in potentially in very real trouble of having that Thursday, Sunday. Do you then rip up the league and go, right, well, that was a horror of a season, and go all in for the Champions League?
You can't, because number one, it's too much of a gamble. Number 2, they don't have a team capable of winning the Champions League. Not against some of the rivals that are there, starting with Man City. And number 3, I'm afraid that the bonus now for finishing a place up and down the table, I can't remember what it is, but you're looking at about £1 million per place And after all the teams have lost so much money in terms of gate receipts all season, you can't afford, to pass up 5-6 million or whatever it would be, which would, I think is what you're talking about. The difference between finishing, like, say, completely out of it because you just playing the kids in the league and now just concentrating on the Champions League. No, unfortunately, I get what you're saying, but I don't think so. I just think, going back to it, I think the club, for whatever reason, again, I really want someone to dig into this about how the owners, reacted to winning the World Series with the Boston Red Sox and what they did to try to rebuild after that. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's a single fan of that club or franchise who was satisfied with the way the club dealt with being the winners. And I think, Liverpool tried to do what they did after winning the title and invested a certain amount of money, but it was, there was more needed to be invested. And certainly the decisions at Christmas were just really baffling.
I mean, there's, you talk about the three guys out of form, but you've got Shaqiri, Jota, and Origi in reserve. I would love to have them at Newcastle.
But the issue is that they don't then fit the system. And so if you've created this system where you need your centre-backs to be playing long diagonals to your fullbacks wide to cut the ball back, where does a 4'5" Shaqiri fit into that system? It doesn't work. And whilst he can come on with 15 minutes to go and, set up a brilliant goal against West Ham, he can't, if you play him for 90 minutes, he's not gonna give you the output that, a Salah will do or a Mane usually does in terms of, tracking back, getting forward, that sort of thing. So I think there is a rebuild actually there, which needs to start with probably selling one of their front three, which Mane's probably the one that you would sell because Firmino I don't think is very sellable and Salah's the heart and soul of your team at the moment. And then also probably getting rid of some of that kind of backup that you had to win that league, like a Shaqiri, and then you put it all in for Mbappe.
Or Haaland, yeah. In the hope that they have some kind of release, because obviously Liverpool are nowhere near if it comes down to market value.
No, not now, Kev. No, I agree. Yeah. No. There's talk of 78, 80 million for Haaland next season for an English club. I think it'll be more, and really you're looking at a Man City, Man United, maybe Chelsea. I can't see him going to Liverpool, especially if they don't make the top four, which they might not this season. But then again, going back to your point there, Fino, is that not down to the coach then to change the system and find a system that works with the players that you have available? Yes
and no. I think yes in the recruitment. I don't know the setup of Liverpool, and I don't know if there's a director of football or a recruitment team that are playing the way that the only kind of reference point I've got is Gerrard's Rangers, where they'll go to the director of football and say we want a right-sided 10 or a left-sided 8 or whatever it is, and they'll put together a short list of players that fit those attributes. So I think yes, but also I think Klopp is just trying to do the best that he can with a bad situation. And also I think, Kev's alluded to it a couple of times over the last few weeks. Maybe he's just trying to send a message that all is not 100% well. I was going to say at Melwood, but it's not Melwood at the moment, down Anfield Way.
Yeah, interesting times at Liverpool. Final game of the weekend, Joe, Monday night. Everton, massive win for them. I don't remember the last time they won at Anfield. I'm sure Kev will tell us. Against Southampton, who stopped the rot and got a fantastic point against Chelsea, Joe.
Yeah, it was a really pleasing point. Southampton, I just thought once the penalty went in, I thought they were going to collapse like they did against Wolves the previous week, but they really dug in, they worked hard. It was clear that they'd had a full week to prepare on a match on the training field for the first time in a long time, and that was really clear. I don't think we'll beat Everton away, though. Everton, fresh off beating Liverpool, they'll have their eyes back on the top four. They've got a game in hand, so they're not too far off. Obviously, Fulham kind of showed that if Everton do have an off day, they can be beaten at Goodison Park. So if Everton aren't at their best and Saints play well, then, anything's possible. And I guess we'll have to wait and see how we get on against Leeds tonight. But I can't, as much as I'd like to say, I can't predict that we're going to beat Everton away.
Yeah, I thought it was a decent result for you guys at the weekend. And from kind of small acorns, maybe a decent last half of the season, last quarter of the season will grow. We talked about it there with Liverpool. That decision to let Minamino go on loan is looking increasingly bizarre. I thought he was challenging Mason Mount for being man of the match, in my opinion. His goal was exceptionally well taken. The only thing that I can think of is that he was afforded a lot more space being a Southampton player than he is afforded as a Liverpool player. And maybe he's not quite as adept at playing, with a team in front of him rather than, playing in between those lines.
He didn't have that many opportunities at Liverpool, did he really? Whereas at Southampton, he's been given a really key role in the team, and he obviously thrives off that.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe that's, maybe he's one of those pieces, we talk about Liverpool rebuilding, that they maybe need to try and find a role for him. Everton, though, and Kev won't like me talking about it, but it's difficult to overstate how good that team is and the quality that they have when they're all on form. I mean, James's pass for Everton's first was, it didn't matter which centre-back pairing you had out of the many that Liverpool have had, because it was going to split any defence open. And then Richarlison was incredibly lethal with that finish. I think they look really strong, and that's why I'm probably a little, cynical about West Ham's top four chances, because I think Everton will be thereabouts come the end of the season. And if I was to go player for player, I think that Everton team are a stronger team than West Ham player for player.
Just a quick update, guys. This is probably the first time this has happened in many seasons. Southampton have had 2 players sent off in the space of 2 minutes. Vestergaard and Bednarek, Joe. And Leeds have a penalty. I almost got him there for a while.
Oh.
What have you got for us this week, Kev?
It's about time we had a bit of Emily Dickinson, so we're going to go for it here. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me and said this football season will be a living purgatory. Each time you hit a low and think at least things can't get worse, I'll craft some new material for a more macabre verse. Match week 25 and still Man City just get better. A bit too smart for Arsenal and his former mate Arteta. I think their winning run now stretches out to 59. Yeah, keep on beating everyone, pet mate. That's fine. But it feels like you're mocking us as the season keeps unfurling. Winning tricky matches by the head of Raheem Sterling. 10 points clear, 13 to play. It's almost done and dusted, while down below poor Liverpool have quickly readjusted. At first it looked a title stroll, then a slog, but still, at least they're in the mixed up top. But that was just until the new year came and winter went, and with it all hopes faded. The season's aspirations also brutally downgraded. At least you thought a derby win could get us back in groove, but a soulless Anfield saw how much this sad team must improve. Everton came with a plan and played it to perfection. An early goal, Richarlison, then misery, dejection. Unless you were a Blues fan who had every right to revel, as lockdown turned to meltdown in the words of Gary Neville. A double celebration as United reigned supreme. Newcastle overwhelmed despite a goal from Saint-Maxime. 3-1 winners in the end, and really they impressed. I think it's fair to say now they're the best of all the rest. Leicester on their shoulders after edging Aston Villa. Harvey Barnes decisive in what turned into a thriller. Who's that in fourth? Well, bugger me. It's West Ham going nuts. Champions League contenders now. No ifs, no ands, no buts. Could they do the impossible and finally dismiss this winning run from City that's now just taking the piss? If you guess they have a chance, then I'm afraid you're a poor pupil. Let's face it, nothing's going to stop this team from winning the quadruple.
Good stuff, Kev. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks. Off to watch Saints beat Leeds.
Cheers, Fino.
Cheers, guys.
This has been the Irishman, Englishman, and Scotsman Football Podcast. Don't forget, folks, if you're listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button down there on the bottom right-hand side. Enjoy the games, and we'll be back again next Tuesday. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you.